Today on Context, the International Monetary Fund is warning that the global economy has entered a dangerous phase. We'll examine what's going on around the world and how it affects us here next. I'm Lorna Duick, and you're watching Context, the show that looks at life beyond the headlines. World debt level is rising by the minute. Greece, Italy, and the United States are facing huge decisions on how to repay government debt and avoid jeopardizing the global economy. Average citizens are reportedly experiencing household and personal debt levels at all-time highs. So how did the situation get so bad? And what lessons can we learn from this current crisis? Let's put it in context. Well, here to help us make sense of the state of the world economy is David Pett. David previously worked as a financial advisor with TD Bank and now writes on finance and the economy for the Financial Post. Thank you for joining us, David.
Thanks for having me.
We're getting scared. It looks like the world is becoming unglued on finances. Help us understand why this European crisis is a threat.
Yeah, it's gotten really, really messy. It's a threat because it threatens the global economy. If things go bad in Europe, it can spread to North America, elsewhere, and really puts us in danger of falling into another recession.
And why can Europe not do what America did and refinance itself?
Well, the U.S. hasn't really refinanced itself just yet. They've agreed on their debt ceiling for now. They still have lots of debt too. The immediate concern, though, is Europe. And one of the problems is that you're dealing with a European Union, and you've got many countries that are dealing with large levels of debt, and there's just no solution right now that's come to the table that's appropriate for everybody.
You know, I thought everybody was just governments, and until I saw the gripping photos of the 55-year-old Greek man who set himself out on fire outside his bank. I saw this in one of the financial pages here. Help us understand how this is impacting a local Greek fellow like this who feels my only hope is to burn myself up.
Sure. I think, one of the things that Greece is having to undergo in terms of their debt is that part of the bailout that's been provided by the European Union, the International Monetary Fund, is that there's severe austerity measures. And so people are losing their jobs, pensions are being cut. And so
if you would have worked for the government before, you might not be able to work now. If you were getting a family allowance check, it's not coming anymore.
That stuff a lot of that is stopped. And so understandably, there's a lot of outrage.
So the average income of a normal working European is getting hit.
Sure, yeah. And the economy is not doing well in Greece. And so you add that to it, people are out of work. And so it's a desperate situation for many Greeks.
And what are they doing for solutions?
Well, I think this is part of the problem, is that there seems to be a lot of political dithering around this whole issue.
And you've written you think there is a political solution, sorry.
Well, I do. I think if we compare this to the financial crisis of 2008, this needn't be as bad as what we went through in 2008.
Why not?
Because this is largely a political problem. There's a solution out there. The European politicians, the IMF, people have to get together and come up with a concrete plan to fix things here. And they just haven't at this stage. They continue to kick the can down the road, hoping that the economy will improve. But it just hasn't happened.
And the solutions within their reach would be what?
Well, one of the things that they have been doing is they've been providing bailout funds for Greece. Not just Greece, Portugal as well, Ireland as well. But those funds are running out. And so one of the solutions is to increase the amount of money that they're using for these bailouts. Another solution, which is now being hinted at, is that Greece defaults on their debt and it restructures. And what happens here is that the bondholders or the banks who are lending the money to Greece would take a hit. Whether you agree with that or not, that could be problematic for European banks, and there could be a spread.
And then that brings it back to my bank.
Yes.
And so how does a consumer get prepared?
Well, in terms of the Canadian consumer, obviously if we fall into another global recession, that's going to hit Canada. It's going to hit our economy. It's going to hit people's jobs. So it's not good on that level. Now, So from that standpoint, because we have large debt levels, personal debt levels, our government doesn't have a huge debt level if you look at this respectively towards Europe. Huge personal debt levels. If you start to lose your job, all of a sudden you can't pay your debts. So that's where there's a bit of a concern here in Canada.
So the alarm bells should be going off in our head to get our personal debt levels down right now, because we have no indication it's going to get better.
Definitely. I think we've seen our personal debt levels, our household debt levels, reach all-time highs recently. So we are borrowing more and our incomes are not going up.
Even after the lessons of 2008.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we've seen is in the U.S. we saw a huge real estate crash. In Canada, we didn't experience that as much, and I think maybe the lesson was lost on a lot of Canadians. So we've seen that our credit levels are rising. One of the problems, too, is that we've had near zero interest rates in Canada for a long time and will for a long time yet. That makes getting credit very cheap for people.
I know a lot of people buy their first home now. We send our kids to school. We think this is a good time.
Yeah, we're seeing it. Toronto and Vancouver.
But there'll never be a better time to buy a house, is what a person thinks when the interest rates are that low.
Well,
and your advice would be?
Yeah, you know, the interest rates are low, but you've really got to make sure you can afford that mortgage. And you have to weigh the fact that perhaps you might lose your job down the road. People are overextending themselves too often.
So don't buy unless you can afford to lose your job.
You have to really assess what your budget is and make sure that it's the appropriate thing for you.
All right, David Pett, any last-minute advice for some of those people who are watching the stock markets? They're invested. All of us are with our pension plan, or most people have some kind of money they might not even realize in the stock markets. What's your advice?
Sure. I mean, I think we're going to be in for a really volatile ride for a little while longer. It may not get as bad as it did in 2008, but I think you got to make sure you're protected, make sure you're diversified with the way you're investing, and you know, expect slow growth economy for some time to come. We're not going to see the days of the early 2000s anymore. This is going to be a slow growth environment for some time to come still.
Okay, David Pett of the Financial Post, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Okay,
now we need to find out what you think. Should wealthy countries help alleviate the national debts of struggling countries? Would you say yes? Are you unsure? Or would you say no? Send your answers via Facebook, Twitter, and email, or by phone. But here in the audience, the studio, we do have a live vote, and we'll have those results after the break. When we return, Finance Gets Personal. We'll talk to a financial advisor about money management. That's next on Context.